Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television's special presentation Reset India, where we talk about all aspects of Indian economy and how India is going to tackle the challenges in the future and bring in those reforms which are required. Now, today we're going to talk about infrastructure sector, which is the backbone of Indian economy and also responsible for the overall development of India. And it also enjoys a focus from the Indian government as far as the policies is concerned. There are several policies which have been initiated to ensure that a world-class infrastructure is created in a time-bound manner. So today, we're going to talk about the infrastructure sector, what exactly is happening there, what more needs to be done in terms of reforms and policies, and how those reforms and policies will bring about the change and then bring about that future and achieve those goals which all of us are talking about for India. So let's begin by taking a look at the investment in the infrastructure sector since last few years and what exactly is happening. The spending in 11th five-year plan on the infrastructure sector was 24 lakh crore rupees. And this 24 lakh crore rupees was almost 7% of the GDP during these 5 years from 2008 to 2012. Now, if we talk about the 12th five-year plan, then in the 12th five-year plan, the spending on infrastructure sector, that is specifically the investment out there, was around 36 lakh crore rupees, an increase of around 12 lakh crore. And in terms of the GDP, the growth approximately was 5.8% of the GDP, which actually is less than what it was in the 11th five-year plan. Now, let's take a look at the last two financial years. 2018, it was 10.2 lakh crore rupees investment. In 2019, almost similar. The estimates say that it is around 10 lakh crore rupees when we talk about the investment. So this is the investment scenario when we are talking about the infrastructure sector in the past few years. Now, let's take a look at what exactly is happening in the last 1 year or so. In the 2019-2020 budget, the finance minister earmarked at least 100 lakh crore rupees for the infrastructure sector in the next 5 years. And what exactly is happening in the infrastructure sector right now? It says that the infra projects worth 44 lakh crore rupees are currently underway. So out of those, 100 lakh crore rupees which were earmarked, at least 44 lakh crore rupees worth projects are underway. Some of them are the old projects as well, which are nearing completion or are in different stages out there of completion. So let's now start the discussion and let's now talk about with all these aspects with our experts. Let me introduce you. Today, we have with us Mr. Ajay Ahluwalia. He is the Executive Director of NHIDCL. We also have with us Mr. Sudhendu Jyoti Sinha. He is the Adviser-Infra connectivity with Niti Aayog. And we also have Mr. Tanmoy Chakrabarty, Chairman of the FICCI Committee on Urban Transformation. Welcome, all of you gentlemen, to Rajya Sabha Television. And let me begin with you, Mr. Tanmoy. And let's start by looking at your perspective and the industry's perspective as far as the infrastructure sector is concerned. Where do we stand today?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. And, I would like to say that the pandemic has really been a wake-up call for not only just us, but indeed the whole world. It has clearly exposed some of the gross inadequacies that we have in our urban-rural landscape in terms of infrastructure. If you look at the mass exodus of migrant laborers, clearly there is a huge requirement for low-cost housing that is required in the urban cities, which we have been systematically slumifying for so many years over the decades. So clearly there is an opportunity in the infrastructure space for massive low-cost housing opportunities in all our cities. Secondly, if you look at public transportation, you look at the melee that happened in terms of people wanting to exit and go back to the respective destinations. Clearly, there is an inadequacy of public transportation, both intra-city as well as intercity, which requires a massive push in terms of big infrastructural investments in terms of public transportation. If you look at the healthcare sector, there is a need for us to build massive capability in terms of health support in initiatives, not just in cases and times of pandemic, but also for regular healthcare support of all our people. So from an industry perspective, again, if you look at all our rivers, every one of the rivers that is bypassing our major cities today needs massive rejuvenation. So there are massive opportunities that we see in the area of river rejuvenation, not just cleaning the main arterial Ganga, but also all the arteries, etc., that feed into the main rivers. That's where we have to bring infrastructural push to be able to cleanse our rivers and from the source rather than at the end points.
Okay.
So clearly, low-cost housing, public transportation, healthcare infrastructure, water management are clear infrastructural segments and areas where we believe as industry there are immense opportunities that have been thrown up, and now it is for the government to respond with prioritizing the infrastructural push in these sectors which have been exposed acutely.
Okay, let us now bring in Mr. Sudhendu Jyoti Sinha from Niti Aayog. Mr. Sinha, from your perspective, if we talk about the trend in investment as far as infrastructure sector is concerned, how do you look at that trend and what needs to be done there as well? Because it's always about investment as well as policies.
Thank you. You raised a very pertinent question. In fact, the government has got a national infrastructure pipeline in which, as you rightly mentioned, 111 lakh crore rupees has been earmarked for that. Now, as I'm looking after infrastructure connectivity and electric mobility, let me tell you that two dates become very significant. First is that on 7th of September 2018, our Prime Minister inaugurated Global Mobility Summit. Now, in that summit, he laid down the broad contours, the parameters of mobility. He talked of 7 C's: common, connected, convenient, congestion-free, charged, clean, and cutting edge. That is the kind of transport, that is the kind of system that he envisaged. Now, he talked of clean kilometers. Naturally, he must be looking through the sustainable mobility kind of thing. Now, based on that, on 7th of March 2019, exactly 6 months after that, our cabinet approved a national mission on electric mobility and battery storage. Now, hitherto in the urban areas, you see, there are 3 primary concerns of our passengers. First is that they do not want more than comfort, more than ease, or more than affordability. These are the 3 primary concerns. First is that they do not want to get logged to a particular schedule. They do not want to get tied up to a particular timing. That is the first one. And second is they want a sustainability. Sustainability is also most significant thing.
Okay.
That is there. So this is the main concern of the passengers in the urban areas. Now, as we mentioned about the recent pandemic, definitely, it is not the affordability, more than affordability, it is the passenger behavior. That becomes very important, because behaviorally, what you are thinking is that earlier your concerns were more on the availability. Now you are also concerned about the hygiene factor. So maybe that in the post-pandemic time, we will have to reinforce the public confidence in the public transport systems by a kind of awareness campaign. At the same time, by our initiatives, visible initiatives, to improve the level of hygiene and sanitation, so that people have confidence that they can very well come with us and things will be okay. That is what my observation is.
Okay. Okay, okay. Let me now bring in Mr. Ajay Ahluwalia here as well, the Executive Director of NHIDCL. Mr. Ahluwalia, highways is a very important component when we talk about the infrastructure sector. So what's happening there? That's obviously one part of the question. And two, how do you see the overall growth or the investment of the infrastructure sector so far?
Well, the investments by the government in the infrastructure sector, they have been increasing, and for this particular year, they have increased. I would say since NHIDCL is working primarily in the northeast region, we are seeing a threefold increase in the investment in the northeast region for the highway infrastructure. While last year we sanctioned works worth about 7,700 crores. This year, we aim to sanction works worth of almost 22,000 crores. So therefore, there is a massive push by the government for development of the infrastructure, especially in the northeast, and I'm quite sure likewise in the rest of the country.
Okay. And is the growth trajectory as per what is the expected line as far as infrastructure sector, the highway component of the infrastructure sector is concerned, Mr. Ahluwalia?
Sorry, I didn't get the question.
Is the growth trajectory of the highways sector as per the expectations, as per the plans? Are we moving on that path only?
Yes, I would put it that way. In fact, the growth trajectory in the highway sector is in fact better. We have been constructing greater lengths of roads every year, and this year we plan to almost, at least for NHIDCL, we plan to double our targets.
Okay. Okay, so it's one area where we seem to be doing much better than if you do a comparative analysis there. Let me go back to Mr. Tanmoy here. Mr. Tanmoy, let's now talk about what more needs to be done, because there's a lot of talk about reforms, a push for reforms. So when we talk about the infrastructure sector, from your perspective, from industry's perspective, what kind of reforms are you looking at?
I think the industry is really looking at outcomes. I think we've had enough of discussions, debates, dialogue, talk, allocation of budgets. What we really need to see is actual projects so that the industry can accelerate the momentum of engagement to be able to then get the work done and deliver outcome. If you look around all our cities, I can count the number of de-Islamification initiatives that are really going on around our major cities. Whereas the reality is that, we have tremendous problems that are being faced day to day by the people who are daily wage laborers and others who are staying in the slums in and around the cities. We need to analyze, as we build highways, that what is the decongestion and choke points where it takes as much time to get out of a city from the main roads of the city and get onto the highway to be able to reach the next destination. Almost the time taken of getting out of the city is the same as much as taking the highway and going to the next city. I think these are the kinds of introspections that we really need to see as citizens of the country. We need to see why is it that the Dwarka Expressway in Delhi is not really getting delivered in spite of so many years having gone by, and what impact does it have on the building infrastructure industry, which had the high hopes of, really developing a lot of building infrastructure projects on both sides of that proposed highway. So I think there is the need today for us to really see action, and people also would like to see outcomes. The focus needs to be on end dates of projects, not so much on start dates of projects. I think that's where the industry really needs to work together with the government to be able to see and get that outcome delivered to the people who will then benefit from such infrastructure push.
Okay. So it's all about picking up the pace of the work, and it's all about giving that push to the deliverables. Let me bring in Mr. Sinha again. Mr. Sinha, as Tanmoy ji is pointing out, the idea is to go ahead and look at the deliveries now, deliverables, and tangible outcomes. That's what the industry's perspective is. From your point of view, What can be done to, push these deliveries and tangible outcomes? And also, does it need some policy tweaks as well?
If I might say, in the highway sector, for example, Mr. Ajay Ahluwalia will definitely substantiate what I am saying. In the highway sector, as far as national highways, expressways, district roads are concerned, Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana is concerned, I mean, it's a massive, massive amount of work that is going on. Especially if you see areas of northeastern, the kind of connectivity support that is there. I mean, the areas which were hitherto inaccessible, now they are on the roadmap of the country. That is the kind of work which is going on. Whether it is road sector, whether it is railways, for example, everything is being evolved in an altogether, I would say, in a maverick way. So, and same is in the shipping, for example. In shipping also, in inland waterways, they are in civil aviation, the kind of connectivity that is there, the number of airports that have gone up, and people, even this Udan scheme is there, where Ude Desh Ka Aam Nagrik, which has made accessible to even the common citizen of India. That is the kind of connectivity, that is the pace with which it is expanding. But yes, it does require two things. I will not completely disagree with what Mr. Tanmoy Chakrabarty has said. It does require two things. One is that the monitoring system has to be absolutely rigid so that the time schedules are honored and the implementation is put in place. In fact, the standing instruction is that whatever project is taken up must be completed from start within 24 months.
Okay.
That is a kind of, I will not use the word caveat, but that is the kind of guidance which is there. And I am watching from Niti Aayog, because we are the ones who do the appraisal, that most of the projects are being delivered on time. So it would be a little unkind to say that the progress is not I'm worth appreciation. It is tremendous appreciation that is going on. It will definitely require gradually more of public fund also to come in. So what I am trying to hint at is the PPP kind of models of implementation. And yes, with the more rigorous project monitoring systems, we will not allow even a single project to slip away. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Chakrabarty, are you satisfied with what Mr. Sinha is pointing out there, that obviously the tangible outcomes need a lot of push, but the projects are meeting deadlines, and the last point which he made, the PPP project, the PPP mode rather, that is the best way to move ahead. So does the industry also think the same way?
No, I don't want to be misunderstood that, I meant that nothing much is going on. An awful amount of work is going on. But we all have to be cognizant to the reality that this is a cumulative backlog of the inactivity of several decades of inactivity, which has now been, there is a serious attempt to make up for that lost time. So we all acknowledge that reality. But at the same time, look at the dimensions and the complexity of the country. We need to bring solutions to where the density of population is at pain every day. I think those are the sectors that need to get prioritized.
Okay.
Absolutely appreciated Sinhaji's point on the Northeast. Absolutely disregarded and avoided and neglected for decades of years together. Now the appropriate focus is coming to the Northeast. Absolutely laudable by the government. But at the same time, if you look at where the real challenges are, the density of population, our massive unplanned urbanization that has taken place across, let's say, the top 20 cities of the country today, we need to bring order to the chaos in those cities first, because that's where the majority of the people have moved. So we can't shy away and say that we are doing things in a distant area, whereas the people on a daily basis are in pain. Look at the city of Delhi. Last time the buses were bought in Delhi was during the Commonwealth Games. I believe that Delhi needs 30,000 buses to be able to offer a fiduciary guarantee of guaranteed time interval between bus availability so that people will keep their cars at home and take a public transport which is reliable, credible, safe, clean, hygienic, and on time.
Okay.
So that's the kind of intensity and magnitude of the infrastructure push that we are talking about to handle 2-3 crores of people and their needs in the NCR region, for example. And the same is the plight in all other cities, major cities of the country. They need 10 times, 20 times the time, the magnitude of the plan. You start a metro railway route today, the very first day the metro is chock-a-block full. So what does it show? That there is a cumulative backlog of demand which is being struggled by the administration to deliver in the form of a supply.
Okay.
So we fully appreciate that. But at the same time, the focus has to necessarily be moved to outcomes. I gave you 2 tangible examples where the timelines have been badly gone out of whack. One is the Dwarka Expressway, which I mentioned about earlier in my program. Let's get an end date commitment and let us ensure that the administration does everything to finish it so that everybody can plan around that end date commitment, which is like a fiduciary guarantee to the people.
Okay.
That's what I meant.
Okay, wonderful. Let me go to Mr. Ajay Ahluwalia for the concluding comments, and taking it from there where Mr. Chakrabarty left, Mr. Ahluwalia, that yes, a lot is being done and it is tangible. The projects are being completed, but a lot more push needs to be given to specific projects as well. Timelines need to be met. They can't be delayed further because there is already a lot of backlog, as Mr. Chakrabarty is pointing out.
Mr. Tanmoy Chakrabarty brought out one point that he brought out was urban infrastructure. Now that there is a requirement to have a dedicated push and allocation of funds for development of the urban infrastructure. Now I'm sure Mr. Sudhendu would be able to give more on the urban infrastructure information as to what the government plans are, because our work is basically outside the cities, national highways development, and more on the northeast region. Now, the second point what Mr. Tanmoy brought out was regarding the end dates, the tangible results. Now, in this regard, it is a teamwork. The development of a national highway, there are certain obligations on part of the authority or the government of India, which is getting the land, removing the encumbrances, obtaining forest clearances, wildlife clearances. And then there is the part which are to the obligations of the contractors.
Okay.
Now, the government has mandated that the works will now be awarded only when 90% land is available encumbrance free, so that the contractor thereafter can develop the roads without any encumbrances. This is the first thing that has been brought into our contract agreements, and which is being said so which is being put down in every approval which is coming with the projects. Now, having said that, the contractors also have to deliver. Now, from our side, what we can ensure, I'm not talking of the PPP projects, but which are public funded projects, which are the EPC mode, which is there today, we can ensure that the contractor's payment is given to him quickly. I would not even say timely, as fast as possible. And that is what we are doing. We are making all the possible payments to the contractor without any delay.
Okay.
We are also giving him every other approvals as fast as possible. But the contractors also have to play the game and have to deliver the projects in a time-bound manner. They have to ensure that the payments that we are releasing, whether it is a mobilization advance or it is an ad hoc advance, is applied to the projects. Now, that is something which is at times found wanting. We have also had to implement certain mechanisms to control this. So therefore, it is a joint teamwork. As Mr. Tanmoy brought out, we have to bring in, or which we have already brought in, that the clearances with the help of the state government, central government are all be in place, and so that the time and cost overruns are avoided, and the projects are being very strictly monitored. As Mr. Sudhendu brought out, we have a direction that the projects should be completed within 24 months, and we are trying our best to ensure that. We do almost a fortnightly review of the projects to understand where are the problems. Are there any problems with respect to any land issue? Sometimes after the land is acquired, even then subsequently there are problems, or if there is some issue with respect to forest clearances, or there are some issues with respect to law and order. And we I would say for NHIDCL, our managing director, he's almost on a daily basis touch with the chief secretaries of the states.
Okay.
So to that extent, the government is doing everything possible to ensure that the projects are implemented in time.
Okay.
Now, there are one or two odd cases which he mentioned, Dwarka Expressway and all. Yes, the delays have taken place, but I guess we must carry out a study to find out why the delays took place and come out with the remedial measures so that these kind of delays do not take place in future.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Mr. Ajay, Ahluwalia, Mr. Sudhendu, Jyoti, Sinha, and Mr. Tanmoy, Chakrabarty as well for sharing your views with our viewers. So there it is, all about the infrastructure sector, the most important sector when we look at Indian economy and what exactly is happening there, what more needs to be done. As our panelists were pointing out, a lot on the ground is happening, but there needs to be a more integrated approach and more focus towards tangible outcomes, meeting the deadlines as well. And we're hoping that all these challenges will be tackled in the time to come. We'll come back again in our next episode and we'll talk about several other sectors as well. Do not miss all these episodes of Reset India on Rajya Sabha television. And if you do miss the telecast, you can watch the episode on our YouTube channel as well. Log on to Rajya Sabha TV's YouTube channel and search for Reset India. Thank you.